Today we are going to review for quiz 3. So the topic that I handed you out last time in class, I'd like you to work through that, and then when you're done working through that and preparing for this, then I want you to come back and we're going to walk through each of these questions together. So go ahead and pause it, and after you've worked through it, then come back and we'll work through each question. In the first question, it asks us to put this parabola here into parabolic form. Now, in order to put it in parabolic form, notice it says complete the square, and then identify the vertex, and then any intercepts. That means both the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. First thing I need to do is I need to subtract that 2 to both sides, and now I need to get this right here equal to a 1, and I do that by dividing everything on both sides by 2. So now I have g of x minus a 2 over a 2, and that is going to be equal to x squared minus 1/2 x. Alright, now I need to complete the square. When I complete the square, I'm going to take half of this and square it. So half of a half is a quarter. A quarter squared is a 16th. So I'm going to add a 16th to this side, and I'm also going to add a 16th over here on this side. So plus 1 over 16. Now I'm going to factor it. And in factoring, this becomes a perfect square trinomial, so I'm going to have x minus 1/4, the quantity squared. And on the other side, I'm just going to write all of this down. Okay, now instead of moving it down, I'm going to move this 1/16. I'm going to subtract this 1/16 to both sides here. Okay, so let's subtract 1/16 to this side, which means I'm going to subtract 1/16 over here. So now I have g of x minus a 2 over a 2 is equal to x minus a quarter, the quantity squared, minus a 16th. Next, I need to get rid of this divide by 2. So I'm going to multiply by 2 on both sides again. Okay, so I'm multiplying 2 on both sides again. I'm going to times it here by 2. And I'm going to multiply this by 2. And I'm going to multiply this here by 2 as well. Alright, so now that's going to give me g of x minus a 2 is equal to 2 times the quantity, x minus a 1/4, the quantity squared, and I'm left with 1 over 8 on this side. Now I'm going to add a 2 to both sides, so I will get g of x is equal to 2 times the quantity, x minus 1/4, quantity squared, and when I add a 2, that gives me, let's see, I have 2 minus an 8th, which is going to give me 1 7/8. Okay, so it's going to be plus, okay, that's going to give me 15 over 8. All right. Now, what from here? Okay, next it tells me that I need to find the zeros, the x and y intercepts. Now, in order to find the x-intercept, I plug 0 in for y and solve for x. Okay, so in doing that here, let's see, I'm going to plug 0 in here. So let's see, I'm going to subtract 15/8 to both sides, so it's going to be negative 15 over 8 equals to 2 times the quantity, x minus 1/4, that quantity squared. Then I'm going to divide by 2, so that gives me negative 15 over 16 is equal to x minus 1/4, the quantity squared. Alright, next I'm going to take the square root of both sides. And in taking the square root of both sides, what do I see? I see it's going to be the square root of a negative number, which tells me right there it goes into the complex number system. That tells me that I do not have any roots, any real roots, that is. Okay, so right now I can conclude, and I conclude that by taking the square root of both sides, just like this, and because it comes up to be a imaginary number on this side, okay, that tells me I do not have any x-intercepts. So I have no x-intercepts. Now, what about y-intercepts? Well, to do the y-intercept, I am going to plug 0 in right here. Okay, right there. So g of 0 is going to equal 2 times, and 0 minus 1/4 is negative 1/4 squared, which is 1/16 plus 15 over 8. Now, simplifying that, we're going to have 1/8 plus 15 over 8, which gives us 16 over 8. So I see that g of 0 is going to equal 2. So my y-intercept is going to be at 0, 2. Now I encourage you not to stop right there. What I encourage you to do at this point is go ahead and check it. So when you plug it into your calculator and check it, you will find the graph is going to look something like this. It's going to cross here at the 2, and it's going to look something like that. So notice, you can see, looking at that, it does not cross the y-intercept, and its y-intercept is 2. Okay, that takes care of it for this problem. Okay, it says identify any zeros of the function. Also state its left and right hand behavior and where it is increasing and decreasing. Okay, there's our function, and then the hint says that x minus 1 is one of the factors. Okay, that tells me that if x minus 1 is one of the factors, that means one of the zeros of the function is going to be a 1. So I'm going to use synthetic division, and let's see, we're going to put 2 and 3, negative 17 and a 12 like that. And we get a 2 and a 5 and a negative 5, I'm sorry, positive 5 and a negative 12 and a negative 12 and a 0, and that is my remainder. So I have left, let's see, x minus 1 went into it. My what is left is a 2x to the second plus a 5x minus a 12. Now I'm going to factor that, so that'll give me x minus 1. And it's going to factor down into 2x minus a 3 and x plus a 4. Now if I set each one of those equal to 0 using the zero product property, I will get the x-intercepts to be 1, 3 over 2, and negative 4. Alright, next let's look at where it is increasing and where it is decreasing. Also, I want to look at where it's the behavior, left and right hand behavior. So let's do that next. So I see the function is going to enter, and because looking right up here, and I'm looking right at this part of it right here, this tells me that it's going to enter in the third quadrant, and I can see that it's going to leave in the first quadrant. Okay, so there's some left hand and right hand behavior. Now, in order to find what it does, all right, let's quickly set up a little graph here, and let's write down what we know so far. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we know first of all it crosses the x-axis at 1, so we'll put a dot there, at 1.5, which puts a dot right there, and at negative 4 puts a dot right there. I know it enters here and it leaves here. Now we're going to go take a look at the graphing calculator, and we're going to graph it to find the relative maxes and mins. Now, looking at my calculator, I can see that this point right down here, it's going to do something, let me change to red, it's going to do something like this, and this relative min right there is going to be 1.2559 and negative 0.6566. Okay, squeeze that in right there. Alright, and for my relative max, it's going to be way up here, and it's going to be, let's see, it's going to be negative 2.2559, and it's going to be 42.6566. 42.6566. Alright, so the graph is going to come up like this, and it's going to, okay, now I need to find out where it's going to cross the y-intercept. and it's going to cross at 12. So right in here, it's going to be a 12. So it's going to go something like that, crosses here at 12, and then it goes back up through. Okay, so that's kind of a rough sketch of the graph. Okay, now using that, now I can see where the function is going to be increasing and decreasing. Now, if I look here at the negative 2.25 right in there, notice the function is increasing from negative infinity until it hits that point. And then at negative 2.25 it starts to decrease all the way to a positive 1.2559. And then from 1.2559 then it starts to increasing to infinity. So let's go ahead and just write that down. So I can say that the function is going to increase from negative infinity up until negative 2.2559. It's also going to increase from 1.2559 to positive infinity, and it's going to decrease from negative 2.2559 to 1.2559. Okay, now one of the big things that students, this is an area where they make mistakes. They will look up here and see it decreasing from this, and they're going, and you don't mistakenly use the range value to see where it decreases. Always use the domain value. So be a little person walking along the x-axis and looking up and down and see where it's increasing, and then when it decreases, and then again where it increases. Okay, and that will cover question number 2. In question number 3, we're going to review long division. So let's go ahead and do that. We have our divisor dividing into our dividend. Our divisor is 2x squared. Now notice there is not a 0, there's not an x value, so make sure you put a placeholder there, plus a 0x minus a 1, and you're going to divide that into 2x to the third plus, now notice it goes 2x to the third, and you do not have a x squared, so put a placeholder, 0x to the second, plus a 2x minus a 4. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to ask myself, this 2x squared, what times 2x squared is going to give me a 2x to the third? And that is going to be an x. So I take that x and I multiply this x times each one of these, and I'm going to put them right down here. Okay, so I end up with 2x to the third plus a 0x to the second minus 1x. Now, one area that I want to caution you on. Some of you will subtract without putting the little marks there, the little subtraction. I recommend changing the signs and put your changes there so you can see it and you don't forget. All right, now from here, notice that that this is going to divide out. Subtract out. It has to subtract out. If it is not the same thing and it does not subtract out to 0, then you have put the wrong piece up here in the quotient. You've found the wrong piece up here to multiply that x times this. So, in other words, this times this has to give you this value. If it doesn't, you've done it incorrectly. Okay, so let's go ahead and subtract this out. So I see here that I am going to get 3x minus a 4. All right, now notice this went out to 0 as well. Okay, now stop right there. Let's look at this. This is to the first power. Okay, this is to the second power. This here is smaller, has a smaller degree than this does here. That means that this is my remainder. I'm done. Okay, so I'm going to just put up here, it's going to be plus, and then I'm going to write it as 3x minus 4 over top of 2x to the second minus 1. And there is my quotient. Okay, for the next one, let's look at synthetic division. Now here, I see I have x minus 1. I'm going to set that equal to 0 and solve it. That gives me x is equal to 1. So I'm going to put 1 out here. On the inside, I'm going to put a 2. Don't forget to put your 0 for 0x squared, a 2 and a negative 4. Now, drop down the 2. 1 times 2 is 2. 0 plus 2 is 2. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. 1 times 4 is 4. Gives you 0. So the polynomial is going to be 2x to the second plus 2x plus a 4. And that is the quotient. Okay, for this problem we're going to practice adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. So let's start with addition first of all. I have 4 minus 3i plus 2 plus a 5i, and I'm going to add the real parts. So I'm going to go 4 plus 2, and then I'm going to add my imaginary parts, and that gives me 6 plus 2i. Okay, so there is the sum. Next, let's go with the difference. To find the difference, we have 4 minus 3i minus 2 plus a 5i. I am going to distribute in my negative here. So that's going to give me 4 minus 3i minus 2 minus 5i. And I'm going to add like parts, so I will get here 4 minus 2, which gives me 2, and negative 3 minus 5, giving me a negative 8i, and that is my subtraction. Alright, let's take a look at a multiplication. So for multiplication, we're going to take 4 minus a 3i times 2 plus a 5i, and you're going to just distribute it. So we take 4 times 2, gives us an 8. Then we take 4 times a positive 5i, gives us plus 20i. A negative 3i times 2 minus 6i. And a negative 3 times 5i gives us a minus 15i to the second power. Adding the 20i minus the 6i will give us 8 plus 14i minus 15i squared. Now we need to remember, I squared equals negative 1. So I can substitute a negative 1 in for that I squared, which makes this a plus 15, which will give us 23 plus 14i for our final answer. Alright, now let's look at the division of this. As we are dividing it, I have 4 minus 3i divided by 2 plus a 5i. Now, we cannot have an I in the denominator, which means I have to multiply the top and the bottom by the complex conjugate of 2 plus 5i, which is 2 minus 5i. Alright, in doing that, now I'm going to distribute my numerator and my denominator. And in doing so, I have 8 minus 20i minus 6i plus 15i to the second. On the bottom, I get 4, then I have a minus 10i, then I get a plus 10i. Those are going to go to 0. And then I will have a 5i minus 5i, which is a minus 25i to the second power. Now, from here we're going to add the negative 20i minus the 6i together, giving us 8 minus 26i. Then it's going to be minus 15. Why is it minus 15? Because right here I can plug in a negative 1. And I'm going to do the same right here. Plug in a negative 1 for that I squared. And on the bottom, that is going to give me 29. Okay, so on the bottom it's going to give me, let's see, that's going to be negative 7 minus 26i, and I'm going to write it as two fractions here, so I'm going to distribute the 29 between the real and the imaginary part, so that leaves me in standard form that quotient. Okay, here you're probably asking yourself, what is he going to have us do on the graphing calculator? Well, okay, well, let's take a look at that. First thing, you probably should make sure you know how to set up a graph, how to enter an equation in there. Secondly, make sure that you know how to set up the window so that you can see the graph appropriately. Now, thirdly, after you've done those two things, make sure you know how to analyze it. How do you analyze it? Okay, so what do I mean analyze it? Well, make sure you know how to find your x and y intercepts. Secondly, know how to find the relative max and mins. Next, be able to see where the domain and the range is. Next, where does the function increase versus decrease? Okay, and I think that pretty much wraps it up. Okay guys, next class period we will have the quiz, so come to class prepared, and I'll see you in class.